Hello and welcome to the Witness History Podcast from the BBC World Service, with me, Ben Henderson. 10 years ago this week, it was revealed that Irish beef burgers contained horse. The scandal snowballed and within 6 weeks engulfed more than a dozen European countries. One man found himself at the heart of it.
I'm sitting in the office and I'm just wondering, what are we going to do now? This was really my worst fear. I just thought, good heavens, how am I going to explain this to ministers, to the public, and so on? It was a bit of a rabbit in the headlights type syndrome, thinking, what do you do now?
That's Alan Riley. He was chief executive of the Irish Food Safety Authority, the organisation that uncovered the scandal. This was the reaction.
We don't know where the horses have come from, or if they've died naturally or of disease. We don't know anything. They just put it in and expect everybody else to take it and eat it.
50,000 tonnes of beef have been recalled by the Dutch Food Safety Authority. It has been deemed unfit for human consumption and may contain horse meat.
Alan was shocked by the discovery, but the mislabelling of products wasn't completely unheard of. The global food supply chain is a huge, complicated network. So complicated that no one was properly monitoring it. If a hunk of meat arrived in a factory, people believed what it said on the packaging, or didn't ask any questions. So, it was a mystery what was happening to it from stable to table. Here's Malcolm Walker, the chief executive of Iceland, a British supermarket.
Did we test for horse? No. But we haven't tested for dog or cat either. And there might be dog and cat. You can't test for everything.
In addition to that lack of oversight, Europe was just emerging from the 2008 financial crisis, and money was tight. So, one way for dishonest meat processors to keep costs down was to substitute beef for a less expensive alternative.
The basic reason that this happened was because horse meat was cheap. The type of horse meat that went into these burgers was less than €1 a kilo, where if you're looking at beef, it was probably anything between €2 and €5 per kilo. So you can see that with that price differential, these fraudsters were able to make a lot of money.
Now, fast forward to 2012. Alan knew that products were being wrongly labelled, so he turned his attention to beef and asked his assistant to get hold of some samples for testing.
I asked her to go out and buy the type of products that she would buy for her children. She went out and bought a range of things like pies, burgers and so on. And we sent them to a lab for testing, and the rest is history. Then they came back with the results. On one burger, they had 29.6% horse meat. I rang up the head of the lab and said, look, are you sure that there's no possibility that these could be incorrect? Because if they are, I'm going to have a whole lot of egg on my face.
But the results were correct. Now, it might surprise you to find out that a beef burger doesn't actually have to be 100% beef. It can legally contain as little as 47% beef in England, with the excess often made up of a mix of water, fats, or protein from things like pork rind, all of which may be labelled on packaging as seasonings. But this amount of horse meat was unacceptable, and crucially, it wasn't identified on the packaging, so it was fraudulent.
After going home and sitting with a hot towel over my head, I briefed ministers' advisors and asked that the story be kept confidential until at least the end of the week, to give me a little bit of time to find out exactly what was happening. But then the story broke. I remember our media manager in the Food Safety Authority of Ireland. I was on the phone and I could see there was something serious that she wanted my attention, but I couldn't get off the phone, so she wrote on one of these little yellow stickers. The story is out there and the Daily Mail is on the phone wanting a quote. And I still have that yellow sticker.
So where did the horse meat come from? Alan knew Irish supply chains were heavily integrated with mainland Europe. So he gave his friends at European food standards agencies a call.
I did ring a number of them and said, look, this is what we found. And I particularly remember my German colleague coming back to me and saying, look, that type of thing would happen in Ireland, but it wouldn't happen in Germany. And I said, look, next time we meet, I'll buy you a pint, okay? Do me a favour and just go out and test a few of these products. He was back within 3 days and he said, good God, do you know what's happened? He said he found 100% horse meat that was labelled as beef.
Over the following weeks, horse meat was found in beef products in more than a dozen countries across the continent.
Food safety authorities in the Netherlands are recalling 50,000 tonnes of meat.
The Swedish retailer IKEA has become the latest company to be affected after horse DNA was found in meatballs sent to its stores in the Czech Republic.
The Romanian government has robustly defended its meat industry. It's denying claims that it was the source of horse meat found in beef products sold across Europe.
You're the CEO of the FSA. Did you feel people might say, well, you should have seen this earlier?
Look, we were blamed for it. That we're doing an inquiry on the whole horse meat incident in the House of Westminster. I was attacked on all fronts. Like, it was the Irish that put the horse meat in the food chain. The amount of negativity in that particular interview, I will never forget. And I remember at one stage saying, look, if it wasn't for the Food Safety Authority, the good people of the UK would still be eating horse meat in their burgers.
The committee's views seem to be shared by Malcolm Walker, the chief executive of the British supermarket Iceland that we heard from earlier.
B-E-E-F, beef. That's what's in our burgers.
I know, but the Irish say there is 0.1% of HORSE, horse.
Well, that's the Irish, isn't it?
He later apologised for those comments about the Irish. But what was the general public's reaction to the scandal?
The initial public reaction was jovial. We had a tsunami of horse meat jokes. You just wouldn't believe. I never want to hear another horse meat joke as long as I live.
Oh, you've got to tell us a few, don't you?
Yeah, I had an award-winning burger last night. I didn't realise it had won the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Those are the type of jokes that we were being flooded with. But then the story turned to one of revulsion.
Revulsion was definitely the word to describe this British woman's mood.
It's not on, because if you buy something that says what it is and it's not, then you're being duped.
Could you describe how do other meats actually get into a burger on the shelf?
We discovered that horse meat was being added deliberately in Poland and frozen into blocks. This was then transported to a UK company who also added some horse meat. And the evidence we had for that, we found a piece of horse meat with a chip that they put into horses for the identification of horses. And we found one of those chips from Poland. We also found some sweet papers that were frozen into the blocks of meat with Polish writing on the sweet papers.
But who was ultimately responsible? The supply chains are so complicated, it was difficult to pin the scandal on any one person or organisation. However, 5 people across Europe were jailed for their role in it. More than 700 brands were caught up in the scandal, and millions of meals had to be withdrawn from supermarkets. Looking back on it now, it's been a decade since the scandal. What are your thoughts on your personal role and that of your team in such a big moment?
We've ensured that there's better protection for Irish consumers and certainly European-wide consumers. The industry have also improved. In fact, they no longer will buy beef without testing, and really I think that's key, that the most important ingredient in food is trust, and certainly that trust was lost with the horse meat scandal, and I think now that trust is back in the food chain.
Alan Riley retired from the Food Safety Authority of Ireland in 2015. He was speaking to me, Ben Henderson, for that episode of the Witness History Podcast. And if you've enjoyed this programme, please do leave us a review.